All right, today we're going to talk about creating systems at scale that build towards a masterful life. I'm with Ty McTier, who is a college athlete, a master bowyer, and a lawyer. So, Juris Doctor Ty McTier, great to have you. Let's talk about some things.
Yeah, good to be here. You've
Through,
listed off some interesting hobbies.
yeah, well, I'm an artist and an entrepreneur and a coach. So, creating systems that will scale with your life is of the utmost importance. Let's just start with the first thing, the college baseball. When you were training to become the athlete that you eventually ended up being, tell me about some of the systems that you put in place from early on, like as a kid to into college.
Well, aside from throwing the baseball with my brother in the yard for hours and hours and hours on end, at least that was how it all started. And then as each level you move up, you realize, okay, talent and some practice is not going to get you there. You've got to implement systems to get better. You got to start working out and make sure that your workout schedule matches what you're doing. And that's tough. For a couple of years, I was working out too much and I was always sore, and that kind of dipped my performance for a little bit. But trying to find that middle ground, not necessarily the middle ground, but the fertile ground where you're really able to perform. And now that I've read his book, Atomic Habits by James Clear, I am kicking myself for not reading it a long, long time ago. He had a very similar story where he actually wasn't very talented, but he implemented systems every day. He just wanted to get close to 1% better every day and have that incremental change in his life, studies, and in his baseball. And that book's been very foundational for me. It really made a difference. I read it about 3 or 4 years ago, and I really wish I had read that book a lot sooner.
Yeah, so what you're telling me through that, you say that you can overwork, overtrain, and do things, work really hard, be really active in the pursuit of whatever your goal or dream is, but without the correct structure that allows you time for healing, that allows you time for breathing outside of what you're pursuing, you cannot fully become the dream, the athlete that you wanted to. So in
Yeah, because
creating a system,
injuries took me out because
right?
I did too much and didn't allow myself to heal, and I tried to do too many things. I tried to be a position player and a pitcher. Looking back, if I wanted to optimize my athletic performance, I would have made a decision. All right, which of these two do I have the most innate skills with? And
Right.
then pick one and then discard the other, because throwing a a game one day and then the next day out there, uh, taking balls and throwing them across the diamond hard, it wore my body out. I had a very
Right.
similar story in the law where I just tried to work too hard, and burnout's a very real thing for attorneys. A lot of people kind of talk about it, they give lip service to it, but they don't. There's not a whole lot out there
It's
with
kind of
attorneys
tongue in
talking
cheek
about it.
from what I've experienced with dealing with lawyers. Like it's tongue in cheek. Like they almost want to tell you that they're burning out because that means they're working really hard. You know,
Right, it's a badge of honor, which is crazy. That needs to be changed. I mean, can you imagine? Professional athlete, let's say, Kershaw, pitcher, him saying, "Yeah, I just wore myself out. I was really tired when I was pitching the World Series."
to me, it's like
Doesn't make any sense.
it's like a Purple Heart syndrome. We love the folks that serve our country, but after you get your first Purple Heart, something on you probably doesn't work as well. So in a career outside of war, and law in some places is war, but that's the battle inside the courtroom. Going up, leading up to that courtroom should not be a war. It should be something that you can do every day that does not completely stress you out and wear you out, and that you shouldn't wear a badge of your Purple Heart of this is how hard I'm working. You should have systems in place that allow you to perform at the highest level and still be a complete human being, because guess what? That will 100% allow you to be a warrior in the courtroom, which is where you want to be.
But yeah, the ultimate goal is for trial to be a strategic strike, a very limited, targeted, focused campaign with minimal
Right.
bloodshed on your end. I mean, that's really the goal, not this chaos. I don't know where stuff is. I don't know if witnesses are going to come. I mean, sometimes you can't control whether a witness comes or not. So you can sure get those subpoenas out early and tell the court, look, we've been trying to serve this person for 4 weeks. And if the court knows that, they're going to let you put on evidence. based on that, or they'll continue the trial. But if you don't send those subpoenas out, or you try to send it out, the week before or the week of, I've seen a lot of attorneys do that. Judges
Why?
aren't going to let you put on that evidence.
Why would they push something like that off? Because it's pretty important.
Well, it's because to survive in this climate, you have to have a fair amount of cases coming in, or else you can't keep the lights on, and people just get bogged down. And they have too many cases that they're perfectly able to handle, but they don't have the systems in place to be able to focus on those and get them handled.
Well, let's move back to the baseball. How did you create those systems? You were at a very young age, still in mid-90s, as a teenager. You were at the top 1% of probably all people on planet Earth that played baseball. You had the opportunity to... What's that?
For a short time, because I didn't have the systems.
Right. But you were there. Let's talk about how you got there. Maintaining is, with what we've built with Firm Overwatch and the law atmosphere, we allow you to maintain the highest possible realm of performance because you're not bogged down with the things that you don't have to or need to deal with. There was a point ramping up into the baseball that you became elite. And, whether you want to realize it or not, being an elite college baseball player that threw in the 90s was still pretty awesome.
I'd say the systems that I had was just consistency, really. I really wish I had more, looking back, knowing what I know now, to kind of pull myself back. Like, hey, you don't need to go throw as much as you're throwing now. You need to focus on building up your legs, your leg strength, and your core strength. I wish I had more on that. The theme of my life up until recently has been just work really, really hard, do everything you can, and then hope for good results. And that can get you where you want to go and way beyond. But there's that extra step.
You got Purple Hearts.
of being smart about it. And looking back, although I love how everything turned out, to met my wife, the way everything worked out, if I kept going with baseball. But if my life goal was to be the best baseball player I could be, I would have to cut back on some things and actually have a system, in place, other than work out as much as you can, practice as much as you can.
And I know you've learned from that, right? Because that's how you started doing law. You did the same thing. I'm going to do it as much as I can, as hard as I can, more than the other guy, right? That's what from the outside looking in, that's what I saw. And now you're at the point of your career where you've built systems that will scale with you so that you can be a complete human being and not just...
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I learned the same lesson twice, which I'm kind of, sometimes that's the best way to really learn a lesson, is to learn it twice in two different fields. That's the exact same thing I did in the law. Was worked hard as I could, try to get out, early in my career to generate business. I tried to be in front of everybody, not from a pride standpoint, but, having a family and kids, like I had to. Like,
and you're also a dad. I forgot to include that in your awesome intro there. You got 4 children. Yeah, there's things you have to do.
And I had Charlie, my oldest, where my wife was pregnant with her when I was taking the bar, the first bar exam for North Carolina. And, there's a lot to be said about having a system of working hard, studying hard, because, when I was studying for that, I had the mentality of, I'm taking this one time. And, I studied all day. As soon as I woke up, I had the worst diet imaginable. A lot of
gummy bears, right?
A lot of gummy bears, gummy worms. But I told myself, look, whatever my body wants, it's getting, but the trade-off is I'm going to study absolutely as much as I can. And that system, it does work, but I hate using this adage, but it's so true. When your legal career, I mean, it really is a marathon, not a sprint. Like, you can't walk it and you can't sprint it. I mean, you've got to maintain a good pace. And that was something that I've just had to learn over and over. Now, fortunately, with the technology that we have, I can actually do that. But the frustrating thing, and I think the number one reason why most litigators, at least one time in their career, experience some form of burnout, is that you have 2 roles. And one of them is to be excellent in the courtroom, which takes a lot of time and dedication. And the other role is to manage your cases and make sure they're moving forward so you don't get caught up in an emergency situation. And those 2 roles, mentally, they conflict. It's not natural for anybody I know. In fact, the attorneys I admired early on, in my career, still do. I always admired how they're able to handle so much, but that comes at a cost, because as you advance in your career, you get more cases, you're actually able to work less, especially if you want to have any type of family. You can't work the same amount on the cases that you did before while managing the cases. And without technology to do that, you kind of have to pick one or the other. And nobody does that well because you can't.
Right. Well, I hope you are. I mean, we've literally built a system based
Well,
off
with,
of
with
you.
technology, yes,
Right.
but without it, it's really, really difficult to do, because those two roles are very important. One's more important than the other, being excellent in the courtroom. And attorneys, especially litigators, they have to prioritize that. Either you're spending most of your time getting ready and preparing, or you're spending your time updating clients and making sure the cases are moving, and the associates that are on the cases are doing what they need to do. Without technology to fill that gap, you have to either choose one to be excellent at, or be okay in both. And you can have a career out of that. I mean, there are attorneys that have made a lot of money doing it that way, but it's very difficult to scale. The few firms that I've seen in my 10 years of practicing that were able to grow, they had one guy or gal that basically pulled out of practicing the law and really focused on building the firm.
Right. And that's what we've tried to digitize here. So talk a little bit about what's your daily experience. I know you use Westlaw a lot, and they're an incredible service. And we
Oh, yeah.
built basically the perfect complement to that, because we built what did not exist. So just talk me through what's your day look like when you log in. What are you looking at? You using one monitor, two monitors, eight? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I used to have 3 monitors early on when I was associate, mainly because with discovery and all that, I needed extra. I'm down to 2 now, because I'm not doing as much of the document review, at least the initial document review. But yeah, I think having 2 screens helps a lot. Well, I'll walk you through my older routine, which most litigators without firm Overwatch have to do if they have a decent caseload, and that's get into the office, pull up your case management software, and I was spending at least an hour and a half, 2 hours every morning trying to figure out where all my cases were, who was doing what. And then I would spend another hour, sometimes 2, making sure that everyone on the team of those cases knew what they're supposed to do next, and making sure they're equipped for it. And then, not every day, but I would also spend a lot of time training. And then over time, I realized, some of these people that you train, they leave. And then you have new people come in, and
And you do it all
you
over
train
again.
them, get them up to speed. And then it's like, man, I'm doing this over and over and over. And
Right.
I enjoy doing it, but anytime you're taking substantial time in one area, it's just naturally going to take away in something else. And if you've got kids and a family, then, you can't take time out of that bucket, or at least you can't take it for too long without hurting your family. So eventually, the inevitable consequences, you end up hurting yourself. And that's where a lot of litigators find themselves.
Yeah, when the lawyer's process is clearly sequenced, I mean, you're moving towards a goal and your team is moving towards a goal. And when it's not, you're moving towards just surviving the chaos and getting another Purple Heart Award. And that clear sequence of process is where you can truly develop a beautiful practice, not a law firm that you survive. And, at the end of the however many years you practice, you've left with a brokenness on some levels. You can do the other things. You can have a life outside of the law, which very few lawyers that I've talked with through what we're producing, they don't have a lot of that, or it comes at a massive cost. And not that we're magic and can give you anything, but a clear sequence of events and understanding the process that leads to the outcomes that you want, that's predictable, that your team knows when you do the training, but you do it once. If anytime you're feeling like you've got deja vu in the world of the law process, you're doing something incorrectly. Because if you're having to do it twice inside of your team and it could have been done one time, or if you're doing it over, like you said, the old process works fantastic. If every person that you bring on and on board, every employee that you hire, every associate that comes on stays with you forever, then it's no big deal. You just do it and you move to the next understanding. But it
Yeah.
doesn't work that way at all.
It's less of a deal, but it still is kind of a big deal because let's say you grow, right? Everybody stays with you throughout. Well, if you're growing, you got to bring in new people, and those people have to be trained. So you're
That's right.
still
You're still doing it. Yeah.
losing a lot of time in the training aspect of it,
Yeah.
which most of it can be automated. It'll never be for litigators, for trial attorneys, it will never be 100% training where you can get everything on video. Some things you just have to do, but those
Yeah.
things are actually very limited. And what I've seen it in my practice is I don't have to spend time talking about the foundational things, what we need to do in the case, how to draft a complaint, how to draft the proposed jury instructions, how to draft the discovery requests, all that, 80% of it, 80, 90% is taught through videos, but it allows me to, when I have questions from an associate on, how do we do this better or how do we tailor it to the case better, I can spend 5 to 15, 20 minutes and really go deep on
Right.
the training. And so it doesn't completely, and it never will completely eliminate it, but it makes when you do sit down and train, it makes it very, very powerful. And it just, you kind of closing the gaps for them. And instead of, well, if you look at it like building a house, you're helping them put shingles on the roof versus pour the foundation. And that's a whole lot easier to do
100%.
and more enjoyable too.
What does a scalable law firm look like to you day to day? And then also talk a little bit about if you were to step away within a week or 2 weeks, what systems would immediately break? And that's kind of where I think you should, in a law practice or in anything, look at in terms of scaling. So
Mhm.
when you step away, this, and this breaks immediately, and it's not something that you needed to be directly involved with, that's something that you need to automate and build something around.
Yeah, I'd say now if I stepped away and did nothing, I've got automation on clients coming in. It would probably be making big decisions on whether or not to file a lawsuit.
You're never going to do away with the big decisions you need as a senior lawyer. It's just that's not something you do away with, nor should you. That's the part of the practice that you should be involved with. But the
Right.
problem is when you don't automate the rest of it, when you have to make those decisions constantly, you get tired and aggravated in making the big decisions, and you don't have the mental bandwidth to handle those correctly.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do work, obviously,
Right.
and those are things that you can help your team do, but you still have to be available to walk them through it. There is no fantasy land where you can just take a month off and not do anything.
Most lawyers that I've dealt with, really feel like if they had to step away for 2 days, like it would be the end of the world. Like they don't take vacations, or they pride themselves in working through vacation, that type thing. I don't want to tell you how many times I've had lawyers contacting me on the weekend about help with something because they're working through the weekend. As Americans, we pride ourselves, we're working all the time. I understand that. We don't have the European philosophy there at all. You should be doing high value work. And the reason that the lawyers that I talk with are working through the weekend is because they haven't automated enough of their processes yet. And they're still doing low rent work. Like you shouldn't, as a senior practitioner in your firm, you should not be focusing on any tasks less than your hourly rate. If you think about
Right.
the 10, 15, 20, $100 task, you shouldn't be focusing on at all. They shouldn't even
Yeah,
be on your plate.
yesterday was the last few days was really fun to watch because I didn't have any real substantive time in anything that I shouldn't do. I had a lot of point two, point three to point five of review and edit discovery requests, review and edit complaints. That was fun. And that's something I've never experienced before in my career, but through having a new associate that's a month and a half, 2 months in, and she's had all the trainings from Overwatch and is really getting up to speed. And a great paralegal and office manager. It was fun. It was fun to watch. It's coming together. The technology's working. I was able to do a lot of things, get a lot of things out the door with minimal input from me. It allowed me to maximize my focus on those documents instead of having to generate them, get them started. I have to give a shout out to Westlaw now. Their AI is incredible. It's not going to get it perfect, but it sure does help you generate what you need, just the bones of it. And then you can go in and your team can take that, clean it up. And then once it hits your desk, it's just using your experience over the years of, okay, this is good, but we need to change it up a little bit. There's minor edits and tweaks instead of major overhauls. So
Yeah.
it's been a tough few years to get to this point, but I'm really excited about the technology that's available through Firm Overwatch and Westlaw too.
Just talk briefly about the verification process with AI. Anytime AI is involved, you need to verify. Now, how do your employees and your associates verify the information? They're not just typing it in, hitting enter and copy and paste and then sending it to you. They're verifying the information, correct?
Well, yeah, they're not only verifying it, they're putting it on the forms that we use and in the same format that we use. So there's always, the human element that you have to take a look, verify, and get it ready. And the good thing about Westlaw is if there's any cases involved, let's say you're writing a brief or a reply brief or something, it's a closed universe of only, Westlaw's cases. And,
Right.
there's no fake cases in Westlaw, but you still have to read them. You still have to read the cases and make sure they say what they say. And this is the last point I'll make. Having everything streamlined and organized through both Firm Overwatch and also Westlaw, that allows me to take a mostly drafted brief and instead of working on the formatting of the document and citations and all that, I can focus on the actual cases that are cited in there. Because if you don't have time to look at those cases, then you could end up citing a case that it does say what it says, but the ultimate holding is against your client. I see that one thing I've seen more in my practice than anything else for mistakes from other attorneys because they've run out of time. They're researching, they find a case that says one thing up top that helps them, and then three things at the bottom that hurts them. And when you're on the defense side, all you have to do is poke one hole in the ship and it's going to sink. I've seen plaintiffs' attorneys really miss that a lot, where they will cite this case. A lot of times I won't even use the cases I cite. I'll just use theirs. I'll take it, read the case and say, oh, well, it's good on this point, judge, but 3 of the 4 elements that they have to prove, this case says that they can't prove it. And that's another thing as far as we could go down a rabbit hole here, but as far as counseling your client, if you've got a case that's, not a good case, they need to know, right? They need to be advised, hey, your case is strong on a couple of points, but it's really iffy on these. I don't think we're going to make it. So the settlement offer that they made, you should probably take it. That's where you can hyper focus and really use your experience, especially if you've tried that particular case before. That goes a long way with clients, and it should, because they're not lawyers, they're not litigators. They don't know what it's like to be stressed out in front of a jury.
Right.
And having to get up there and testify on facts that are ultimately going to kill them. And so they need to know that in advance. And the more you can streamline and automate, the deeper you can go on what really matters. And that's what I'm most excited about.
What you're telling me is having processes in place allows everyone on your team, even your clients, to understand what their true purpose is. And when they understand where they're going, it's a lot easier to get there.
100%.
Yeah. Great to talk with you this morning, and we'll catch up with you later.
All right. Sounds good.
All right.
See ya.